let's start at the top of the East because I think this is pretty interesting. Only 9 days into the season, right? 9 days. Some teams haven't even played a fourth game yet. Like Philly has played 3 games. They actually might be the only team.
That's it.
Yeah, it's just that. Yeah. But there are a bunch of teams that have only played 4 games. Few teams have played 5 games. The fact that in the Eastern Conference every team besides Boston and Philly has at least 2 losses speaks volumes to me about the Eastern Conference. And we kind of said all summer there was Boston and Milwaukee in one category, and then like Cleveland kind of, for me at least, kind of had their own tier below that. Now Cleveland has obviously started off the season with some injuries they've been dealing with, which clearly affect them. And then it's like, then you get into the beginning of like the juicy middle, and like people wanted to put the Knicks a little higher. Some people wanted to put the Sixers a little higher. Some people wanted to put the Heat or the Hawks or whoever. Like, I don't know. These teams are different levels of mediocre. Now, granted, can we say the Sixers are the biggest surprise of the top of the East?
Through 3 games, fine.
Here's why, and we should note, those 2 wins came against who are the heavy hitters? The Raptors.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day with the Maxey overreaction.
Well, so, and the other one was against the Blazers.
Mm-hmm.
And then they probably should have won against the Bucks on opening night, but they didn't. I just think, and this has been discussed a lot. We kind of discussed it a lot enough in the Harden thing, but clearly the formula they have right now is working. Now, they lost PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker was a starter for them. We have yet to see them play with their new players. We'll see that tonight. Thursday night, they are playing the Toronto Raptors
again. Yeah.
So, like, we'll see. We'll see if the new players play. But just from this thing is clearly not falling apart perspective, and that's, for me, that's why I think it is at least notable that they're 2-1. You don't share my opinion on this
because it's 2-1. They played 3 games.
Yeah, but it's how they look. It's how I think they look good. I think
against the Blazers and the Raptors. Like, we're not talking about
they look good on opening night against the Bucks.
That's the takeaway. They looked good on opening night against a team that got put together 3 weeks earlier.
Fine.
Like, the bigger takeaway I have from the Sixers is they traded James Harden. And I'm now curious to see what that team with these new pieces eventually looks like. Like, the Sixers, because of the sample size is unbelievably small, it's so tough for me to really conclude it. Like, you want to overreact to a team at the top of the Eastern Conference. It's a team that's above them that hasn't lost yet and just won by 50 points last night.
Okay, so Boston right now is averaging 127 points per game, which is the most in the league by about 5 points. Their best win so far is probably against the Knicks on opening night.
Knicks, yeah,
because then they beat Miami, but that was at home, and we'll see. Like, next they go to Brooklyn. That game is tomorrow night, I think. Yeah, Friday night. No, sorry, that game is Saturday night. So they're not playing for a little bit. Like, yes, the offense looks incredible, and it's gotten better with each game. They went from 108 to 119 to 126 to 155. I guess at this rate, they're going to be topping 200 points by well before Thanksgiving. That's where you want to go? Okay, that's fine.
They won by 50 points last night in the year of our Lord 2023.
Nothing about what they're doing is surprising to me. Maybe it's because I was fairly convinced before the season that they were going to be fucking awesome as long as they're healthy. They're healthy right now.
So then we're properly reacting to them. Yeah. They're winning by 50 points against teams. Now, maybe that might have been more to do with the Pacers, who you thought the Knicks were bad from 3 last night. The Pacers took 7 more threes and made the same amount as the Knicks last night. I just, from the early season returns of this very small sample, the Celtics being 4-0 and consistently like blitzing teams, like running teams off the court outside of the Knicks, is like, oh, this could be 65 win potential rather than 60 win potential.
Listen, they still need to stay healthy.
They do. You're right.
Let's say this. We were probably off base about putting them in the same regular season tier as the Bucks. I think that is
the Bucks seem to be where the Sixers were. That's it, not the Sixers. The Celtics were last year.
Yeah,
in that new coach, not a new core.
No, they're adjusting.
There's an adjustment period to them. That any 60 win thoughts that I had, unless they have like a Nets kind of run in them where they coast for a little bit and figure themselves out, and then for a month and a half, it's like, oh, they're 19-3 in their last 22 games. Other than that, I think the Bucks, and that's again, I just did a pod with a Bucks content creator who watches them much more closely. So this information is fresh, but the idea that the Bucks just like got rid of their defensive identity to go a little bit heavier on the other end with offense with Dame,
a lot heavier on the.
I think that the bigger influence that has had to start the year, like, oh, this is going to be a bigger adjustment than we thought, that they're going to actually need like 20 or 25 games to really, under a new coach with a new quote unquote second best or first best player. You know, I came away a little more confident in the Knicks' chances on Friday night. Not that, you know, it's going to matter if depending on how Julius Randle plays. Well,
listen, the Knicks are their own.
They are.
Knicks are their own thing. I wonder how long before. I wonder what the Knicks would have to do over the next week or two, to get the national conversation to be like, oh, are the Knicks not nearly as good as we thought they were going to be? We'll see. Okay, so that's fine. The Celtics are a juggernaut as long as they're healthy. The Sixers to me look good. Again, not only Maxey, Tobias Harris averaging 20 points a game, and Kelly Oubre being, I don't want to call Kelly Oubre a revelation, but whatever. After that, you have how many teams is this? 10 teams that are either 3-2 or 2-2 or 2-3. The Atlanta Hawks, we should note, are 3-2. When they've looked good, they have looked very good. They have the second best offense in the league, I believe, or at least by points per game. They do. I'll check the
in the league or the conference.
Fifth best offense in the league, third best offense in the conference. I thought the Hawks were going to be good, so I guess I'm not shocked. Their win against the Timberwolves was probably more a reflection on the Timberwolves than the Hawks. That was a game where Atlanta was down by 20 and came all the way back and was up by 20 at one point during the fourth quarter. But like, look, you still got to make the comeback. And they've won 3 in a row. I mean, they've beaten the Bucks, the Wolves, and then the Wizards, which is probably going to be a constant theme. I'll be curious to see what happens when they go into New Orleans on Saturday night. You know, and like of that middle pack of teams after them, we'll save the 3 teams that have 1 win for the next part of the conversation. I don't know, or is anything any of these teams have done notable to you?
The Cavs are struggling with injuries. The Raptors have some half-court offense issues. There's a play going around. Shout out Caitlin Cooper. She clipped it last night of Dennis Schroeder going around on a I forget what the play is called, but basically both big men screened off ball. And if you run the play, if you execute the play with purpose, it's supposed to lead to your point guard coming around and getting downhill. It's kind of a pistol set, but it's run from the side rather than from the top of the key. And Dennis Schroeder just like jogged through it, and it ends up being just a handoff. And it just, that's their life right now. They went from Fred VanVleet to Dennis Schroeder. And I maintain that the Raptors,
and yet they killed the Bucks,
and yet they then again. That's the Bucks issues right now, and that's apparently you play the Bucks, and it's an elixir for your team's shooting poorly. Guess what? You're going to play the Bucks right now. So yeah, I think the Raptors have their offensive issues of this pack. I mean, Brooklyn has this.
Can we talk about this? Can we talk about the 10th leading scorer in the league right now?
Who is?
It's Cam Thomas.
Oh yeah, that.
So
it's funny. You said, remember the other night when you asked me on the post game about Donovan Mitchell and where he ranks in scoring, as a scorer, right?
And what
I did to refresh myself with a list I could make is I went to points per game, and Cam Thomas kept staring at me. It's I'm just going to ignore that for now, but the guy is an elite scorer. There are other things to his game he doesn't do,
Speaking of which, so if you look at the scoring leaderboard right now, if you just look at the top, let's look at the top 15 guys. 14 of those 15 guys are averaging. Actually, sorry. 13 of those 15 guys are averaging at least 3.8 assists per game. The two guys that are under are Anthony Davis, who notably is a plays center for LA, is averaging 3.2 assists per game. And then you have Cam Thomas averaging 1.8 assists per game.
Don't even bother.
That being said, dude shooting 51% from the field, and that is a 51% number, and he's only hitting 30% of his threes, taking 5 threes a game, which is not a lot considering most perimeter players nowadays. The number that stands out to me probably the most is the dude's getting to the line 8.5 times per game, and he's shooting them pretty well. That's a lot. I don't know what we're supposed to do with this. I don't know what the Nets are supposed to do with this. I don't know how people around the league who try to evaluate talent. I don't know what they're supposed to do with this. I would, this is one of those things. I would love to get 15 or whatever different executives' thoughts on is Cam Thomas, would you bank on Cam Thomas potentially one day being the second best player on a good team? Does he top out as a 6-man? Is he an ideal 6-man? Is he someone that you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole if you were building a roster? And none of the answers would shock me.
Yeah, I
thought it was worth noting.
He's always been a bucket as far as I'm concerned, and I'm shocked the Nets are leaning into him being a bucket. There's also the crazy outcome that one of these games that I believe let me look it up real quick. There's one game he didn't start and he still went off. Yeah, opening night he didn't start against the Cavs and he hit 30. That's a season high, 36 points. Now he is coming off a game against Miami, if we can box score scout a bit, where it's his lowest output. He shot 21% from the field.
Yeah, it was not a good.
Only scored.
He was on fire
points.
for 3 games.
Yeah, for 3 games he was the maxi. Imagine reacting to Cam. That's where I was doing the reaction the other night when you asked me about best scorers in the league, and Cam Thomas had 3 games to his resume. He was averaging 35 points a game.
Sure,